each other.
My head's usually down, showing my bare spot or my bald spot up there and everything. When we go on, it's fun. We got to maintain eye contact.
I never.
And 94 shows is crazy. I know.
Isn't it? Wow, it flew.
I know.
That's a lot.
I still like that theme music. Ain't no stopping us now. Work on that one.
Right.
When I'm going to.
Oh yeah, we have to have a theme song.
Yeah,
I think we do.
Yeah.
Now starting like from the hunt, we're gonna go forward with our theme song.
Well, we do.
We're good.
All right.
Well,
Green Room, great.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a 94th episode of the Green Room.
I know.
That's
I know.
just incredible.
We have great guests today. I actually thought it'd been a former Green Room guest because listen, Charles Felix is everything medical cannabis in the state of Florida, runs Hospital News Florida. Turn it over. It's Cannabis News Florida. Don't let me get that wrong, Charles.
That is correct. That is correct. In fact, what's actually even more correct, which is surprising to me, is my picture, which was taken years ago. I actually almost look the same. Versus people that give you pictures that look like they're 30 years old. So I'm actually surprised that I look almost the same. So
no, and I'm glad you had the logo behind it because actually I meant to grab a copy in my office on the way in and hold it up, but you're well representing what you do. But seriously, Charles, you've been knocking around in that media space in the hospital zone of Florida for so many years, and Ruta comes out of the insurance space in Florida,
for so many years.
So I know you guys have a unique perspective about what's been going on, in Florida much longer than I. But what a soup we're in. We always start a little political. We were telling, this is our 94th episode of the Green Room of venting. And it's funny how it started out. So listen, Dr. Oz somehow has a 1,000 vote lead. Listen, if there's ever been 1,000 vote lead, if there's ever been an example, can you imagine that being Nikki Fried, Charlie Crist, 1,000 votes? Seriously, it just points out how important it is to do the one thing that we can do, which is register and vote. And Charles, I'll be honest with you. So Charles and I, listen, we have a special relationship, and I want to speak to it because. And listen, you're not a generation ahead of me, Charles, but give me a half a generation.
I'll give you a little bit half. I'm up there, so I'm up there.
Fair enough. But Charles has been a mentor for me in a lot of ways, coming into the Florida space, and I always like to give deference to those people that have been out there, really, leading the way, blazing the trail, to allow us to do what we do, which is take care of patients every day. And Charles has been really active, in fact, in the forefront of assisting me, and I'll say I've assisted him in really assembling a group of physicians that has been very active in the state. And so he's really put a lot of power behind the legacy that he's made in the state. And Charles, I so appreciate that, the impact that you're making right now. But, I want to make sure
our
that you hear that
legislators aren't the most open-minded people. Let's just.
But you got to start someplace.
You got to start somewhere.
And one of the things is if you have to organize and get people of like minds to be able to get together, vent, get everything that they want to talk about out on the table, isolate those top 5 or 10 items and that you have a chance of pushing, because when people go up there separately or they try to get things done separately, it doesn't work. You got to get together. And that's what we've done. Barry, the group, Barry is the spokesman with the group, and I just kind of assemble the doctors together. But it's interesting how we get doctors who have thousands of patients. We have doctors that have 5 patients. We have doctors that have been doing it for 5 years, and we have doctors that have been doing it for 2 weeks.
And we love when we have a new doctor come into the group, for sure.
And part of it is education. And one of the things the state doesn't do is truly educate the physicians or force them to be able to get educated. So we, in our small way, be able to get them educated, ask questions. So when they do have a patient come in, they're not blindsided, that they can go by historical facts that other doctors have seen and knows that work, to be able to help these doctors out to be able to treat their patients correctly.
I think also it is important, though, that because you have more of a coalition now of physicians, it gives a lot more strength even in Tallahassee, because like you said, if you go on an individual basis, it's not as strong as presenting a letter where, like, you know, you have 25, 30 physicians who are all behind it. And, you know, it still brings clout, even though our legislator, in particular, our governor, is not very pro-science and pro-medical or pro-anything.
Well, we like to think so, and we spoke about
but,
that.
No, but
right,
still, but because he doesn't like to take the scientific or the medical profession's opinions on things. But still, if you go up and you have the clout of the MD behind your name or the DO, whichever it is, and you have that, it still makes an impact. And I think it's so important that you guys did coalesce into a group.
And I got to ratchet it all the way back to the depression of the week, quite frankly, you know, which was Buffalo, you know, and Charles, you and I, you know, kind of come from likewise, you know, experiences growing up in the past, and you know, and not solving this problem, you know, in our generation is just so depressing to me. And the reason I bring it up in morphing into this cannabis argument and space, and the pro women's rights space, and the voting rights space, it just seems that when you can't solve an issue, or at least hammer into the gun, you know, side of it, okay, with some common sense restrictions and background checks, that 90% of the population. My point is, when you have a legislative process, be it in Tallahassee or in Washington, that doesn't answer to the needs of the people for so many years, it's just, there's a depressive pall over it to a certain extent that hammers people down to not take action. And I just don't know what one specific event that there can ever be beyond this one. Because let me tell you why this one bugs me. This kid was 14 years old, okay, or whatever, when he heard, okay, Jews will not replace us, okay, when he saw Charlottesville, okay, and now, and I'll call it out, okay, and during the Trump years, okay, the extremist, you know, right-wing white supremacist nonsense, okay, that was allowed to percolate on social media for the next 4 years, okay, that allowed this kid to foment, okay, with mental illness, okay, no doubt about it.
No question, right?
No doubt. So you take that indoctrination with mental illness and a community. Can you believe a community of Twitch or whatever, or what is it, Don? Form mode or form? I don't even whatever it is. I don't want to know. But then this happens, okay, and there's a 180-page manifesto that was written, and the kid actually had a mental health impact. Oh, he said it was just a joke. Okay. And they let him go after a day or 2 days. No, my point is, we've got to, as a society, solve this, because it just continues to drone into the, it's a depression that the society has over it. And you just don't know what to do when you have.
You really don't, because
you don't.
Well, the thing that's interesting to me, like, because I have friends, mainly a ton of friends all over the world, but in particular Europe, a lot. They're like perplexed by the United States. It really, it's bizarre.
It is bizarre.
Really, it's just a bizarre place that we live in. It's like they can't even comprehend this. They're like, whether it's the abortion rights for women, whether it's, you know, Black Lives Matter, LGBT, all of this, like every single issue, they're like, gives in the United States, like, why are you guys such a mess?
When you can't go to the grocery store on an average Saturday to buy a birthday cake for your kid,
you can't go to
or
church,
you can't stop
go anywhere. Where's your
and it's not. That's exactly right.
You're shot at everywhere.
Hate is hate is hate. Yeah. It needs to be called out for what it is. I'm so appalled by the lack of it being called out by who people listen to. They listen to these leaders, okay, in the Senate and our former president, okay, and it's got me. I'll admit, and I'm so happy to be getting out of the country for 3 weeks. I'll be honest with you, and if I'm really true to myself, I'm going to leave the news cycle behind for 3 weeks, because it's so depressing right now to be an American.
And the thing is, we're going back in time.
We're going back.
We're not regressing. We're just regressing on a consistent.
Well, you know, you take a look at the generation coming up, and I talk about my kids' generation coming up and the generation behind them and my grandkids. and you start taking a look and you're saying, are they going to be any better? Okay. Because this generation right now, there's no hope for. I have to tell you, I don't see any change taking place. You have to look at another 10, 20 years down the road that the new legislative people coming in will have some more common sense than the ones that are in there today. And I don't know if that's going to happen.
Or less desire for power.
You know what?
Well,
the
term limit of people is, again, the government was formed with the idea of a volunteer type basis to help that over a period of time. When you make a career of it and you no longer represent the people within your community, you represent either the state or whatever, and you're really doing it self-serving more than anything else. And it's a job. I mean, we all have jobs. Okay, you do whatever it takes in a job to be able to succeed, for the company to succeed. To me, with politicians today, you do everything you can to make sure you get reelected. Not that you're doing the right thing, 100%. That you're getting reelected. And the problem is the new generation going to think like that or not? And I don't know. I won't live long enough to be able to see it, but I hope that there'll be some common sense. I mean, Carol and myself, we don't even watch shows anymore in the United States. You watch Acorn and Brit TV, okay?
Yeah.
And it's amazing how you watch these shows, some old, some new, and nobody carries a gun. There's no guns. There's no guns. They walk around with a stick and they arrest people and saying, well, that's fantasy. And the truth is, it's not fantasy.
It's not. Because
you've taken away that one weapon that could kill somebody instantly.
Yeah.
And, it's amazing how we as a country can't focus on that. And got diversity one way and diversity the other way. There are some people that, hey, in the state of Florida, they want to be able to say, hey, just carry a gun anywhere you want, anywhere you're going to go.
Open carry's coming. Open carry's going to come to Florida.
You know how ridiculous. Let me tell you how ridiculous this is in healthcare. The state, we as an organization in healthcare, go up to Tallahassee every year, and we fight to the point in time of saying no guns in a hospital. Why would you need a gun in a hospital? Seriously, why would you need a gun in a hospital? Okay, do you know that the legislator in the state of Florida can't figure that out? They'll say no guns here, no guns here, no guns here, but guns in the hospital, it's not a problem. Seriously, why would you need a gun going into a hospital?
A hospital,
right? Well, no, I come out of the ER world, and there's been multiple, instances of gun violence in the ER and in ER hospital parking lots. And believe me, we would have, security there to accompany doctors and or nurses after shifts to their cars. Because now and again, if you stiff a patient that wants narcotics in the ER or something like that, you don't know what's going to be waiting for you.
But it's okay. It's okay to protect them. You can't carry a gun into a legislative building, right? You got to protect those people. You can't carry a gun in there, but you can carry a gun over.
Although, having what you just said, if you go back and you look at some of our representatives from Florida, when they were newly elected congressmen, in particular out of our district, they did go packing into the legislative building and they were stopped. And actually at that point, he screamed his rights were being, this is Representative Stubbe. It was well documented. He thought he had a right to go packing into Congress. He's like, hey, this is my right. So a lot of them, they don't care. They want to pack no matter where it is. They just don't even.
And I think when you combine the inaction on this obvious issue, listen, Sandy Hook goes back, Don, 20 years or something like that?
And we haven't learned it.
And these were kids. These were kindergartners. So to me, what's going on since then? Look at all of them.
Just keep naming it on Columbine. It just is nonstop. Our history is filled with it.
You guys didn't have to deal with that.
No, we didn't. And I talk about the innate. I talk about the innate anxiety in society every single day with my patients, because it's living in 2022. You can look at PTSD from a lot of different angles, and I would never compare any particular citizens, okay, experience with cop, with soldier, okay, with ER doctor, whatever it may be.
But why is it now? Why over the last, like Don was just saying, your generation, my generation, Charles's generation, we went to school, we didn't have shootings, we didn't have to go worry about this. Why in this like you said, in Don, your generation, you already, the last 25, 30 years, you have to learn how to go under a desk. We didn't have that. Like, what changed in our society that it actually, it got so bad? And it's like, it's not getting better, and it's getting worse. But why? The gun control things were still there.
Listen, the whole white supremacist thing goes all the way back to the 50s and the 60s.
Right.
We just haven't solved it.
Mm-hmm.
And we, the right to vote may have been provided, and all these,
but people didn't open up and start shooting each other. Why now all of a sudden they feel like,
why? Let me
combination of a whole bunch of different
I will tell you why, in my opinion. Okay, you have years ago when you had guns, you had gun shops. I remember buying when I used to hunt I lived in Atlanta. The place I went to buy a gun was Abercrombie and Finch, because it was like the only place to be able to buy a gun. They had a nice thing, and I bought a shotgun and went hunting. But you couldn't go to every little place and buy a gun. How many gun shows were there 35 years ago, 40 years ago? They didn't exist. Okay. So what's happened is you've opened up the ease of being able to get a weapon, and it's broadcast over networks how important it is to carry a weapon to protect yourself. So people begin to say, oh, I need this. And I'm not, I'm going to also say video games. Okay. And you may not have it, but the population goes, this kid with that, do you not think that there were a lot of video games being played of shooting and killing? And I'm not saying that's
perhaps on top of mental illness, Charles.
That's right.
It allows a brain wiring, perhaps, to desensitize.
But even mental illness, this is a thing that Europeans have said over and over again. They said, why is there this mental health crisis in the United States? Europeans seem to deal with stuff like, they're like, we don't have the breakdowns of people shooting randomly. Or is it education? What is it that makes this country so
Listen, the social services net was demolished in the 80s. Charles has been around the hospital system for years. We used to have 2 social workers out in the ER waiting room, assisting patients. So the entire mental health system is ignored. We know in Florida, our mental health numbers are 49th in the country or something like that.
I mean, now that it's becoming, and I hate to use the term popular again, but people are recognizing it. So it becomes popular. So I think people today are more apt to be able to seek help, where years ago they may have not. And that helps. It helps. But I still think we're a couple of generations away before we solve any of this. There's no question about it.
We are. And I also think the other thing, though, and Charles touched upon it too, term limits. I think until we have term limits in this country, when you have a career politician, like I ran for office, and one of the things that I hate hearing from politicians is, I think, well, I didn't vote you in for you to think. You're representing all of us. Sure. It's not your personal opinion. I'm sorry. And when they always are like, well, I don't like this. Who are you? You're representing the 10,000 constituents. You're not saying from my perspective.
But doesn't that go back to the argument right now of the Electoral College?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, it all comes back to, if you represent somebody, that person should represent the people that put you there and their thinking. And the problem being, it does not anymore. No. And the scary part of it is, with some states having more control over the electors, changing the system, that's a very dangerous thing in the United States. Regardless of whether you're a Democrat or Republican, doesn't make any difference.
Absolutely.
Doesn't make any difference.
And just morphing it back into the cannabis conversation, because we got to talk events or no, we will. Morphing back into the cannabis conversation, especially talking about women's, healthcare rights. To call it the United States of America, when you have this going on over here on the coasts, and this going on over here in the center, and women who are economically disadvantaged, having to leave their states to get appropriate health care. United States of America, quite frankly, doesn't exist. And I say it's kind of like the cannabis argument. It's going backwards. It's going from taking a federal sanctioned, safe, legal process for women's health care and then splitting it up state by state and going to where we're at in the cannabis world now. How stupid is that? Okay. How far backwards do you want to go? You know, but listen, fortunately in Florida, as I tell everybody, with the help of Charles and others, back in 2016, we passed our medical cannabis, right, constitutional limit. Fortunately so, because we're conservative now, much more so in this state. And I think you would agree with me, Charles, if we didn't have it back in 2016, we'd have nothing. And because we have our program, we have some great events that go on both here in Florida and nationally. The reason I wanted to talk events, Charles, we just came off of CanMed that was out in California, which really, if you talk events, Ruta, it's important. When you pick an event, everybody, make sure you're picking the right event. Okay. If you're a patient, you may be looking for more of a patient focused educational event. If you're a doctor, you may look for a different level of education. Seriously, all events are not created equal. Some events such as Dab Days, right, or Flora, Brian Buono's events are really more, patient oriented festival type of things. Those are great events too. But if you really want the education, you need to make sure that you focus down on certain events. CanMed, Charles, I know you got a lot of the articles that Shelley sent back to our group was full of very important medical and scientific stuff. So we need those events. Rumor has it they may come to Florida next year, which would be great. Awesome. I'd love to have CanMed here. What's coming up here in Florida over the next couple months? Some really important events. I know Gene's got three.
Yeah, we have actually Gene has 3 events coming up, and then Robert Friedman with C Lab has an event also. Unfortunately, there's a conflict in events, so as one might say in life, you got to make choices, but we'll get into that a little bit. The first event coming up this weekend, actually May 20th to the 22nd, is the Florida Industrial Hemp Conference and Exposition over at the Rosen Center Hotel in Orlando. Be a good event for those interested in the CBD world, the industrial hemp world. Very, very interesting. Again, Gene always has very, very good speakers to be able to listen. So if you're in the Orlando area, plan to come up, make maybe a little vacation out of it, come up and join us at the Rosen. The other thing I'm doing is I'm also giving out, if you didn't see it, this is a rated Ricky Williams card that I'll be giving away at the show. So if you want to stop by and see it, my grandson got me into collecting trading cards when we were at the show, and I saw this card. I said, you know what? Perfect. I'm going to get one and give it away on at the event.
I want to mention 2 things too, Charles. The consortium also, which is the highly every pun intended, I guess, scientific research conference here in the Florida medical cannabis world, actually is starting, I think, tomorrow. Tomorrow, correct, right. Tomorrow, it's the 20th and the 21st, and as everybody knows, or the people that watch the show, I'm going off on my trip, so I can't participate in the consortium this year. But for those doctors and healthcare professionals that are watching, absolutely, it's very easy to find that link. It is online. You can watch it in your office, and that's really the research conference right now every year in Florida. So I didn't want to ignore that one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a good one. Again, what's happening is there's so many things going on at one time. They're sitting on top of each other. Unfortunately for the participant, that's the problem. So the next one that's really sitting on top of each other.
Can I do one other hemp thing? I'm sorry, Charles, I didn't mean to interrupt. Holly Bell, of course, and people may not know this. I have not seen it formally announced. Holly Bell announced her resignation as the Holly Bell would be the cannabis czar. Thank you, Ruta. Holly Bell would be the cannabis czar, or the, what do they call her? Not the commissioner, the whatever of cannabis. Anyway, the state of Florida.
Director of cannabis. For the Department of Agriculture versus the Department of Health.
Under the Department of Agriculture, and really did a great job bringing the hemp program to the space, working with Nikki, freed herself. And I want to wish Holly great luck. She's going into the industry in a role of regulation, which I think is great for her. So
unfortunately, within the state, she really didn't have the bite she needed, because legislative people did not believe in trying to pass things that really actually make some sense as opposed to playing around the crap they're playing around with now. So anyway, the next event coming up is going to be the Florida Medical Cannabis Conference and Exposition, FMCCE. That's also put on by Gene at the wonderful Rosen Center Hotel again, and that's June 3rd through the 5th. And at the same time, that's a great education forum. Gene has some great speakers there, and it's a must attend for physicians and people who really want to be educated relating to the cannabis industry and the CBD industry. Most important to do that. The other one at the same time, if you're South State, is C-Lab with Robert Friedman, and his event is June 3rd and 4th, and that's down in Miami. You can find his event on C-Lab. Look it up on there. Another good event, has a lot of stuff going on during the day.
Charles,
and at night.
let's pause on those two for a second. So Gene's, FMCC, I too many E's in, I think sometimes. No, but listen, that's a conference that's been well established in Florida.
Right.
I've been honored to speak at it, Ruta as well in the past. And listen, I can't be there this year because I'm taking my own trip, as people know, but everybody that's watching this, absolutely, that could be patient focused, that can be advocate focused, absolutely physician focused. So it's a great general conference. Tends to have a great room of MMTC sponsors and others on the business side. So it's really one of those great general conferences. Absolutely, positively. So,
and C-Lab is a good conference too. And I have to tell you, one of the things I had to do, and it was a tough situation, is I had promised Gene a year ago to be able to go to his conference. I'm always going to Robert's conference. It's the first one he put on. This is number 6 for Robert. And I can't be at 2 places at one time. Although sometimes my wife says I can, but I can't be at 2 places at one time. I did promise Gene, so I'm going to have to pass on C-Lab. But I will tell you, if you're in the Miami area or around the Miami area, C-Lab is the place to be relating to the businesses, everything around the business of cannabis. So again, if you're mid-state
and business,
right? Mid-state, Gene's event is great. South State, Robert, and hopefully next year Robert had to move his event only because of the COVID situation. So hopefully next year they won't sit on top of each other. But
there's
two great events.
There's one more, Charles, and I want to make sure that Chloe Villano gets a shout out as well. Right. It's not connected with C-Lab, but also in Miami on the same
at the same time.
At the same time will be the Cannabis Business Awards, which is 10th anniversary of the Cannabis Business Awards. And I give a big shout out to Chloe and her bunch. They started out on the West, coast, I think out in Colorado or California, have done their thing, and now bring the awards to Florida. Charles is nominated with Cannabis News Florida. Actually, we won the award in 2019 for publication. Awesome. Yeah. And I am nominated as a cannabis MVP.
As you should be.
You know what? Thanks, Charles. And I don't really campaign on Facebook, this, that, whatever. But if people are watching and they want to vote for Charles, vote for me. Can't be there. And actually, Charles, I was going to ask you to accept the award for me if I actually somehow humbly get it. But you won't be there either.
I won't be there either. So
but there are a lot of great advocates, that are on those lists. To be recognized, and it's really easy. Hit on the link and you can do that. So I didn't want to leave that out. Yeah. That's a great night, also, everybody.
Oh, it's a wonderful. She does a great job putting on an event. Actually,
it is. It's a wonderful event. So check that one out too. Okay, wanted to make.
And the last one coming up that we're part of also, and it's Cannabis News Florida will be at all these events except for the C-Lab one. We'll be there so you can see us. The Cannabis in Sports Conference. It's the first time Gene has put together, again, another conference, July 29th and 31st at the Rosen Center Hotel. Has a great deal at the Rosen Center Hotel. And that's going to be a conference, I know, Barry, you're involved with that conference too. Yeah. It's interesting, as holding up funny, the Ricky Williams card, which is interesting. And then the other card I also have is a Mike Tyson card, There ought to be a card collection of sports figures in cannabis and start collecting cards.
Actually, that's a great idea.
It's something for my office, Charles. Good idea, because I have books that are signed.
That's right. So I think part of it is, regardless of what stage you're at in the cannabis business or usage or whatever, the sports business is really important because of obviously the strain on the body and how cannabis can really help you. as long as it's not one of those substances where you get disqualified. Okay. But learn more. The experts are going to be there that have done research on it. So, I mean, if you're interested in that phase of it, I would say if you're a trainer or whatever,
That's
this is the perfect place to be.
That's
That's
what I was going to bring up about this one, Charles. Right. I spoke to Jeff Conan, who is a PhD athletic trainer, well known as the best known cannabis connection in the medical training world, NFL, all of them. I mean, he's got great connections in the speaker.
And he works at FIU and he writes for us monthly.
Still does, you know, researcher. So it's going to be a great conference. Point is, we're setting the lineup for that conference now. That's going to be the last weekend of July. Okay?
Right.
So already put that one on your schedule. But the exciting thing is, as you were saying, it's really for the allied health professionals.
That's right.
Those physical therapists, those trainers, coaches, right? Athletes.
Chiropractors, perfect people with chiropractors too.
Absolutely. So it's once again about, you know, a normalization of cannabis, the enhancement of cannabis in the healthcare world. So I'm really excited about that conference. We've actually had a sports medicine conference here in the past. It was connected to AMPA, Charles. You remember that?
Right. I remember
that was
AMPA,
famous. No, hang on. There are a lot of things came out of that conference. That was the famous Matt Gates May.
That's right. That's
May
right.
2018 conference. No, I got a lot of pictures of that conference that are kind of, they're interesting. And for sure. But anyway, thanks for the wrap up, Charles. And of course, there's going to be a lot of festivals that are always around. You know, just keep an eye on those. But once again, those tend to be more, you know, kind of music centered. And those are great things too. But if you really want the education, everybody, clue into the ones that we just talked about, be it on the business side, on the lab testing side, on the medical side.
I would say whether you're a patient or thinking about being a patient, what I would call the future patient, if you really want to learn more, these are the places to go to. You know, you can't necessarily.
Or a doctor, of course.
Or a doctor, of course.
Not all doctors created.
No, hang on. But what we know, Charles, and I know you've watched this, is the number of doctors that are practicing.
Oh my God,
medical cannabis. It's just going down week.
Let me tell you something, Barry. From December 31st through last week, the report. 539 doctors have dropped off the registry.
Wow.
Okay. With interesting enough, almost 63,000 patients were added to the registry.
Right.
I mean, so it's just interesting that those two numbers are going in the opposite direction. You know,
that's because the state is making it so difficult, you know, for offices to operate, you know.
For an office, if you're not cannabis centered, it's extremely hard.
It's almost impossible. Not worth the risk.
The paperwork, the changes, from the compliance viewpoint, it's hard.
So patients find a clinic that does it every day, that does it with honor and integrity.
And go to some place that a physician actually knows what they're talking about.
Yes.
And I think it's important to research that. Ask a friend, ask if you know somebody. Obviously, you would know somebody who's been using cannabis for helping them. Ask them where they go to. Take a look. And when you go to these events, okay, if you're really looking for that right person, you'll get the information at these events. You'll see the information at the event.
That is true.
And you know, when you
although be careful, try not to wander into one of those "going to get your card right here" type of thing either. You got to be cautious, but it's a great source of information. Listen, Charles, I know you didn't dress up for us this morning. So I know you have a hard stop. You got Chamber of Commerce, this or that, you know. So, and I'm going to go see patients on my last day before getaway day.
So wishing you a safe travel.
Well, have a great trip, Barry. Have a great trip.
And I'll be back. And Ruta's going to have some guests, you know, here in the green room while I'm gone.
And we still pray for Ukraine. So Slava Ukraini. We still don't forget what's happening there.
Charles, this won't be your last time in the green room. That's for sure. So
I appreciate it. I'll be glad to come back anytime you'd like me to.
You got it.
Have a great weekend, everyone.